Algebra Unit 4, Lesson 7, Note 7, Graphing Inequalities in Two Variables. The graph of a linear inequality is the set of points that represent all of the possible solutions of that inequality. An equation defines a boundary, which divides the coordinate plane into two halves. So right here is a boundary. So each of these are half planes. The boundary may or may not be included in the solution. When it is included, the solution is a closed half plane. When it is not included, the solution is an open half plane. The way we show that, if it's included, we have a solid line for the inequality. If it's not included, we would have a dotted line for the boundary. So here's what we do. We graph the boundary, which is the inequality. We use a solid line when it contains less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, a dashed or dotted line when it contains less than or equal to, less than or greater than. To determine how to shade, we're going to use a test point to determine which half plane should be shaded, the upper or lower. And in most cases, I like to use the point 0, 0, unless the boundary goes through 0, 0. Then you have to pick another point. Then you're going to shade the half plane that contains the solution. So let's take a look at A. Graph each inequality. Remember to solve for y first if necessary. This one I don't have to solve for y, it's already there. We're going to treat this as if it were slope-intercept form. Our slope is 1 over 2. Which means up 1, right 2, and the y-intercept is 3, where we begin. Okay, I know because of this symbol, I know it's going to be dashed or dotted. And to determine what to shade, we need to first graph it. So we're going to begin at 3. On the y-axis, begin at 3. We are then going to go up 1, right 2. So up 1, right 2. Go ahead and plot a few points in there. Remember to go backwards if you run out of room. And I want you to draw a line connecting those dots. Remember, it is a dotted line. So we're going to just make a dotted line through these points. We're still going to put arrows on either side. And we're going to label it with the inequality. Y is greater than 1/2 x plus 3. So that's our boundary. This would be an open half plane because it is a dotted line. Now we need a test point. Again, I like to use the point 0, 0. So here's how we do that. We're going to plug in the point 0, 0. So 0 is for y greater than 1/2 times 0 plus 3. 0 greater than 1/2 of 0 is 0 plus 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. This is false. 0 is not bigger than 3. That tells me that this side, because that's where 0, 0 is, this side does not get shaded. So the other side will get shaded, and we can show shaded by just drawing lines like that. You could shade in the entire thing. It would just take much more time. But that's how you graph an inequality. Letter C, we need to get y by itself first. So let's subtract 3x from both sides. I have negative y, which again is negative 1y, less than or equal to negative 3x plus 2. You want to put that x term first so it's in slope-intercept form. You're going to divide everything by negative 1. Y, remember the sign flips because it's a negative that you're dividing by. Negative 3x divided by negative 1 is positive 3x. And 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. Okay, our slope is 3, or 3 over 1, which means I go up 3, right 1, and our y-intercept is negative 2. I know it is a solid line because of that greater than or equal to, so I know the boundary is solid, so it would be a closed half plane. Let's go ahead and draw this. Again, the y-intercept is negative 2. So let's start with a point on negative 2. And the slope is up 3, right 1. So up 3, right 1. You only need a few points, but I like to draw them throughout to help me draw a better line. Go ahead and line up your ruler and draw your straight line. It is solid, so you don't have to worry about doing dashed. Put our arrows, and then let's go ahead and label it. 3x minus y is less than or equal to 2. Okay, our test point. 0, 0 is not on the line, so we can go ahead and use 0, 0 as our test point. So 3 times 0 minus 0 is less than or equal to 2. 3 times 0 is 0. Bring everything else down. 0 minus 0 is 0. So 0 is less than 2. That's definitely true. Because that's a true statement, and I know that 0 is above the line, that tells me that I'm going to shade up. So here are all the y values above that line. Letter E. A yearbook company promises to give the junior class a picnic if they spend at least $28,000 on yearbooks and class rings. Each yearbook costs $35 and each class ring costs $140. How many yearbooks and class rings must the junior class buy to get their picnic? Write, solve, and graph an inequality to represent this situation. Well, we don't have any variables, and I know we are dealing with two variable inequalities, so let's go ahead and name one x and one y. All right, so I'm going to say let x equal the number of yearbooks and let y equal the number of class rings. Okay. So I know that each yearbook costs $35, so 35 times the number of yearbooks, plus I know the number of, or each ring costs 140, so 140 times the number of class rings, and I know I want to spend at least $28,000, which means that's the minimum. I want to spend greater than or equal to $28,000. So there's my inequality, and let's go ahead and solve for y. I'm going to subtract 35x from both sides. So I have 140y is greater than or equal to, I'm going to put the x term first, negative 35x plus 28,000. Divide everything by 140. And I'm also going to put it in simplest form. So I'm going to use the mathfrak function on my calculator. Y is greater than or equal to negative 35x divided by 140 is negative 1/4 x plus 28,000 divided by 140 is 200. So here is my inequality in y equals. I know the slope is negative 1/4, which tells me down 1, right 4, and the y-intercept is 200. I also know because I have greater than or equal to, I know that it's got to be a solid line. Okay, well, we need labels and we need scales before we can go any further. I said let X equal yearbooks, so let's go ahead and put yearbooks as the X label. And I also said to let Y equal class rings. So our Y label will be class rings. Okay. I need a scale. My y-intercept is 200, so I'm going to go ahead and count by 25s, but I'm going to skip a bunch of lines when I do that. Or not 25s, let's count by 20s. Take that back. So 20, 40, 60, 80. I'm just going to put hundreds on here, but every 5 lines. 2, 3, 4. This would be 200. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be 300. I'm going to do the same on the bottom. Because I want to use my slope of -1/4 and I want things to be easier when I graph, I'm going to make sure that my scales on both the x and y axis are the same. You don't have to have them the same, but then you have to really be careful with your slope. So it just makes more sense to have them the same. 300. 1, 2, 3, 4, 400, and then 500. So let's go ahead and plot. I know the y-intercept is at 200, right there, and my slope is down 1, right 4. Go ahead and draw a line. I know it is a solid line. Okay. All right. Now we need a test point. I could still use 0, 0. 0, 0 is way down here. I can definitely use that as my test point. Our inequality is 30. Let me make that a little thinner. 35 times 0 plus 140 times 0 is greater than or equal to 28,000. Well, I know this is 0 plus 0. Greater than or equal to 28,000. 0 is definitely not greater than 28,000, which tells me that I'm shading up. And this makes sense too. If they're trying to meet a quota of $28,000, if I buy no yearbooks and no class rings, I could never make that quota. So we're going to shade up. You want to shade the entire half of the plane. Writing inequalities from graphs. Step 1. Determine if it's closed or open, half plane, based on the boundary. So again, if it's a solid line, it's closed. Dotted line, it's open. Find the slope and y-intercept. Write the inequality in slope-intercept form. And then use a test point to help determine the direction of the inequality sign. So if we look at letter A, we have a solid line, which tells me it's a closed half plane. So let's jot that down. Closed half plane. Okay, that's part of our answer. And we need the slope and y-intercept. The y-intercept is at -2. And let's pick another point here. Here's another point. My slope is down 2, right 1. which is negative 2 over 1, which equals negative 2. So I know my inequality is going to be y something, not sure what yet, negative 2x minus 2. I need to figure out what goes here. Okay, in order to do that, I'm going to use a test point. Okay, I know you can pick any point that you want, but I'm going to pick a point that's within the shaded region because I know that's accurate. So let's pick this point right here. Again, no reason, it's in the shaded region. So other than it's in the shaded region. This point is negative 2, 0. So let's use this in our inequality. 0 is the y-coordinate. I'm trying to figure out what it is, greater than, less than, etc. Negative 2 times our x value of negative 2 and then minus 2. So on the right-hand side, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Bring down the minus 2. And 4 minus 2 is 2. Well, 0 is definitely less than 2. But I also know it's a less than or equal to because it's a closed half plane. So my final inequality is y is less than or equal to, use that same symbol, negative 2x minus 2. Let's do one more together. Let's look at letter B. This one's a dotted line, so I know it's an open half plane. Let's jot that down. And now we need to find the slope and the y-intercept. The y-intercept is right here at positive 1. And the slope, let's find another point here. There's another one right here. And we go up 1, right 2. So I know the slope is positive 1 over 2. We will have y, I don't know the inequality symbol yet, but I know it will be 1/2 x plus 1. Let's use a test point that's within the solution. Do not use a point that is on the boundary. Use something in the shaded region. For example, we can use, I like to pick a point on my x or y axes just so I have a 0 value to work with. We'll use that point right there, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll use 0, 5 as the test point. So 5 is the y value. 5, again, I don't know what this is yet. 1/2 times 0 plus 1. 1/2 times 0 is 0 plus 1. 5, and on the right-hand side we have 1. I know 5 is greater than 1, which tells me my symbol. It is a dotted line, which means it does not have the equal to part. So my final inequality is y is greater than 1/2 x plus 1. Complete the rest of the notes.